Musicians who have experience improvising and those who don't learn about and use similar musical structures like chords and scales, but they may know about them in different ways depending on how they learn and how they practice using them. We can use cognitive science and neuroscience to investigate differences in these ways of knowing to advance an understanding of how people improvise. If you look at the kind of music improvisers read, it has symbols like C minor 7. And when they see this symbol, they can play it in many ways. They could play it this way, or this way, or this way, or other ways too. By contrast, non-improvisers read music that already fully specifies which realization to play, even though it could, in principle, be substituted with other similar sounds. These musicians would rarely actually make these substitutions because it contradicts the aesthetics of classical music. Improvisers' ability to switch between different exemplars of the same category of structure would aid their improvisatory activities. They could play the same piece in different ways, successfully interact with a new ensemble member who is using different exemplars, and generally be more flexible in their ability to act in different musical scenarios in multiple functionally appropriate ways. You can imagine this applying to other domains of creative behavior. A chef following a recipe that calls for lemons, who doesn't have any lemons, can use categorical knowledge to make a substitution. They may know that the reason the recipe calls for lemons is for their citrus quality, and can therefore improvise a solution and use limes instead. A non-improvising chef, whether because they don't have this kind of experience or they wouldn't ever change a recipe, may not think to make that substitution. We can test whether improvisers categorize differently with what is called an oddball task. With the chef analogy, we would present them with a series of fruits, mostly lemons, but sometimes interspersed with other fruits. If they see one that is different, they are asked to press a button to indicate they've recognized a difference. For example, lemon, 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 lime, press a button. Lemon, lemon, banana, press a button. How quickly and accurately they detect the differences would index how similar the participant perceives it to be. For the improvising chefs, limes would hypothetically be more similar to lemons than bananas are, so bananas would be easier to detect. We call the limes exemplar deviance and the bananas function deviance. For our experiment, we didn't actually use fruits. We played musical stimuli for musicians instead, but the idea is the same. Some oddball stimuli are within category, like the limes, or exemplar deviance, and some are outside the category, like the bananas, or function deviance. They press a button, so we know how quick and accurate they are, and we also record brain activity, which also shows when they recognize a difference and the signals that correspond to the detection of the deviance. We found that the more people improvise, the more easily they identify the functional deviance relative to the exemplar deviance. This was true for their behavioral performance, how fast they press the button and how many they successfully detect, and for the neural data. The signals that index deviance detection were clearer for the function deviance. This effect was not predicted by non-improvisatory experience. Specifically, it's the amount of improv experience that shows the difference. So we can do neuroscience experiments that don't ask how people make up new things, but rather how their knowledge is organized in such a way that would allow them to quickly respond to a variety of situations in multiple functionally appropriate ways.